let's talk about last Friday.
Yeah. Yes,
Opening game of the season, 2021 campaign got underway. Non-district game, the Melissa Cardinals started the season. The Orange people came to town. The Salina Bobcats were on a 4-game losing streak to your Cardinals coming into last Friday night. You and I talked a lot pre-game. We talked on the field before the game. And what were your thoughts going into the Salina game?
First and foremost, I mean, they're a good team. They got a good program. We knew going into the game that we were going to have to be overly prepared. And what I mean by that is we're still putting pieces together. They've returned 15 starters. We don't. We're still trying to kind of figure things out and whatnot. And our youth and our inexperience, we knew at some point in time in the season was going to show up. So, and I'm really glad, to be honest with you, in the second half, it showed up in the second half. So, I'm really
13 at half.
Right, it showed up in the second half.
Unfortunately, 34-13
Right.
Final score.
It showed up in the second half, but at the end of the day, I mean, I said this to my staff. I said this to the kids. The Salina coaches said it to me. I don't want to play you in a month. We're going to get better. Teams like that, they're not going to get progressively better like we are. We're each week.
Okay, now that's a homer talk, right? But why? Defend that statement.
Because at the end of the day, we have so much inexperience and so much youth. I mean, we're starting a freshman corner, a freshman tackle. Our offensive line starts 4 new guys. In the back end, we start 4 new guys. Our 2 inside backers are 2 new guys. Actually, 3 new guys. Really, the only experience that we have is our defensive line and our outside backers. Your offensive player of the week this week is Javon Smith. Javon was a JV kid until about halfway through the season. We brought him up. He probably, besides Sam and Ashton, has the most experience on a Friday night offensively, besides Seth Pintor as well. But on the defensive side, Caleb Otlewski, Kel Brakebill, Justin Mays, Dylan Smith, Nigel Smith, Christian Mantell. That's probably about the kids that we have experience on a Friday night. So, and that's what makes it so fun and exciting to see the future of us and how we're going to progress throughout the year. Whereas, like I said, teams like that, I've been a part of teams like that. You're good from the get-go, and you always kind of stay stagnant. You're kind of always on this plateau, whereas we haven't even came close to plateauing yet. And to be honest with you, that's what I preach. It's my philosophy that we're not going to peak until about week 14, and that's what we want to do. So I'm really excited about how the season's going to progress and how we're going to progress as a team.
Coach Majors, I'm going to ask you to respond. We used a term on Friday during the broadcast for your team. We called your team inconsistent on Friday. Fair?
I think right now that's fair. Yeah, and just to piggyback off what Coach Nally was talking about, I mean, my challenge because I'm lucky enough to coach some of the guys that are experienced, Otlewski, Brakebill, Cord Cruz, Mario Guzman, Gunnar Wilson's a good young outside backer for me that's going to be phenomenal down the line. And my challenge to Cale Brakebill, who you guys are going to get the chance to talk to here in a second, is, we are experienced, but we also have some phenomenal leaders on both sides of the ball. And my challenge to Brakebill and some of these other guys is we have to challenge, the consistency doesn't come on Friday nights. It just doesn't show up. You got to challenge guys every day in practice to every rep, show up, do the small things right all the time. And if our leaders can bring these young guys along, and I told the guys on the field Friday night after the game, the progression of our team is going to really take off these next few weeks, I think, and we're really going to see the potential of some of these young guys that just haven't played varsity football a lot. And so I think that's a fair statement, but not for long, hopefully.
We will introduce you to the offensive and defensive players of the game from last Friday's ball game in just a few minutes. Coach Nally, again, saying it on the air, too many penalties, too many turnovers. Specifically, 8 penalties, 5 turnovers. You know better than I, that's not the way to play winning football.
Right, and like I said last week on the show, and I think I said this before the game with you, I mean, it's going to come down to the first game. So every game is sloppy. Every first game is sloppy that I've been a part of in 19 years. Every first game. So it's going to be the person that can run the football and doesn't have or has the least amount of penalties. So for us, I mean, we set a Guinness Book of World Records for false starts on Friday night.
Coach Deal was
Looking it up.
a little bit emphatic about stop jumping off sides. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So, and once again, it comes from inconsistency for a Friday night game. To me, the upside is this team will play in December, and it will play in December because of the fact of each week those kids are getting more varsity reps, and that is why we don't put so much emphasis on non-district games. A lot of people put, it's the state championship every week. Well, if there's going to be a time where you're going to fall on your face. So we want to make sure that when we fall on our face, it's a non-district game. So at the end of the day, obviously penalties and turnovers, but our team, our coaches, we're going to overcome that, and it's not going to be an issue. Don't get me wrong. Are we going to have penalties? Absolutely. Are we going to have turnovers? Absolutely. But some of those were penalties and turnovers were self-induced is the word, I guess. So,
Self-inflicted.
Self-inflicted. So, and we can't have those. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if it's a kid does a great job of shooting the hip and gets a pick, that's a great job by him. But if we have a bad read, that's on us. You know what I mean? Or like you said, when it comes to the inconsistency of jumping off sides, that's on us. So that's things that we can fix throughout the season.
All right, Coach Major, same kind of question as before. We talked about inconsistency. So your job is to help them take the next step. Tough loss, open the season. Everybody's looking forward to season opener every year. Tough loss, got to refocus, got to get the attitude right, the momentum back in the right. How do you do that?
So I think the tough part initially playing Salina game one is playing just, I think Salina around here is considered a pretty good rival, right? And I've been at other schools where you play your big rival week one and everybody gets real keyed up for it. And then it's either everybody's real excited or everybody's deflated. And I think the issue is going back on what Coach Nally was talking about, where we're always improving. We're always looking forward to district play and playoffs, and we can't get too high or we can't get too low over a game that at the end of the day doesn't really mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, and us accomplishing our goals of winning a district championship and a state championship. So I think that's kind of where we're at, yeah.
All right, let's turn our attention to this Friday's ball game, the Frisco Memorial Warriors. They are Class 5A Division II team. Their head coach is Derek Roberson. And Coach Nally, I want to do something we've done over the years and remind the audience, district games are assigned by the UIL. You don't have a choice. You play who they tell you to play.
Correct.
Non-district games, you pick them.
Correct.
And we even talked about this with Coach Deal on the broadcast. I told him, you don't believe in the cupcake theory of football.
Correct.
I told him you're not the University of Texas, by the way. So you don't believe in the cupcake theory. You play some real teams, Salina Bobcats, and now Frisco Memorial.
Correct.
Non-district games you pick. So how do you pick them? How does the arrangement work?
You usually start in summertime before reclassification happens. So this past year, and let me rephrase that. Pre-COVID, I had gotten the schedule.
Underline that, because COVID changed everything about scheduling.
Correct.
Yes.
So we go back in time. I had Salina first. I had Memorial second. We had Pottsboro third, and then we had. I don't even remember who we had.
Sunnyvale was somewhere in a replacement at one point.
Game. I don't even remember who had fourth game. So COVID happened, and then you could get out of contracts. You could get out of not.
Well, not only that, but the 1A through 4A started.
Correct.
5As and 6As had to wait a month.
So, but even now, when 5As get to start, the UIL allowed you to get out of contracts with other schools. So,
because it's usually 2 years.
It's 2 years.
Home and home.
Correct.
Okay.
So, like Pottsboro said, we're not playing you guys. We had another team that said, we're not playing you guys. I cannot remember off the top of my
Our
head.
friends down in Austin.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
Shouldn't have played them anyway.
Correct.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, you go into, and the hardest thing for me being here in Melissa is finding games. Because when you go and look for a game, 95% of people say, I'm not playing you.
Again, I want to emphasize this. UIL does 6 games at the end of the season. Coach Nally doesn't have a choice. He plays them who they tell him to play and win. Non-district games is totally a coach-to-coach contract.
Correct.
So you're right. People say, I want to play you, and some say, I don't want to.
Correct. So when we went to reclassification 2 Februarys ago. I'm in a room by myself. Me and the Pottsboro coach. Pottsboro just played for the state championship, and I had 0 games, and I think he had 3 games, and we were like, hey,
Coach Poe.
Coach Poe, let's just play. So that's where I got my first game.
Nobody else wants us?
Right. Let's just play. So that's where I got my first game. And then Coach Elliott hit me up maybe 2 or 3 days later. And, people didn't want to play them either. Says, yeah, heck yeah, let's play. And then Frisco Memorial hit me up and said, hey, let's play. So
they came to you first?
Well, I went to them. I came to
okay.
I went to them. Right. And I'll be honest with you.
Camera doesn't lie, you coaches say that.
Right. So I went to I called every Frisco school because I kind of we have too many schools around us that, we shouldn't have to travel.
Because you played Frisco High School twice before.
Correct. So I tried to get them back on the schedule, and they were one team that agreed. And then when the COVID happened, they couldn't play. And then when it went back, they were like, we're going to stay with the schedule that we have. And that's what UIL allowed you to do. They said, hey, you can play the schedule that you made after COVID. So when we were playing Stephenville, and they were like, we're not playing you guys. So cool, no big deal. So I think I talked to you this summer. We had schools drop us this summer. We had gotten Manor. They dropped us. I can't even tell you how many schools because as a coaching staff, we're trying to figure all this stuff out.
We had it on the whiteboard for a while, and it was just a constant reworking of the schedule.
So normally before reclassification, like in February, it'd be reclassification again. In the summertime, you start going and talking to coaches.
In case you're available week 2, we're available. Yes.
Correct. So Dave Campbell's comes out. The Melissa Cardinals are ranked number 3 in the state. You bring back Sam and Kel and Javon and Nigel Smith and, blah, blah, blah. So every coach I've contacted said, we're not playing you. We're not playing you. So this is the hardest time for me to find a game. And Joe can back me up. I mean, I called Todd Dodge at Austin Westlake this summer to play again. I don't care. I just want to play.
That's why he's retiring, so he doesn't have to play you?
Absolutely. But we were going to play them week 4 for about 30 minutes.
30 minutes?
For about 30 minutes.
You didn't even call me during that 30 minutes.
I know. I was like, oh, my gosh, what am I doing? But we were going to play Austin Westlake week 4. And then I found
They're pretty good, I hear.
Yeah, they're not bad.
Who is it now?
And then I found Midlothian Heritage. I was looking for a game. And then we were going to play Carthage for a little while.
They're pretty good, too.
They're pretty good as well. But once again, it's pre-district for me. I want to be battle tested. I want to, have calluses on my hand before we get into district play, and I don't want to play anybody, that's quote unquote a cupcake. I mean, you can go through our schedule last year. I mean, Dallas Carter won the district, but they had some ineligible players, so we had to play them in the playoffs. And I have massive respect for that guy. And he was actually the first guy when we were going through this process that I reached out to, and he said, absolutely. Yeah, he was has the same philosophy. I want to play good people.
That's Dallas Carter. We're playing in a couple of weeks. That's Friday Night Lights. We'll give you the whole history lesson in a few weeks, but that's some serious football.
Correct. So once again, I mean, it's a tough process. It is a long process. It's kind of like what you see in the NFL draft. It's always changing, and you're always
You take it as a sign of respect that they don't want to play you?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's very
frustrating.
Still need a game,
yeah.
It's very frustrating. Yeah. There's teams like the Carthage of the world and Austin Westlakes and Southlake. We were going to play Southlake for a little bit, just because of the fact, and they don't have any games.
All Dodges all the time.
Right. They didn't have any games when reclassification happened. They had 0. And they just sit back and wait for things not to work out, and then people are like, all right, cool, we'll play you. So make a long story short, I enjoy that part of it because it kind of makes you feel like we've got a good program, but it is very frustrating, especially when, I'm not going to name names, but we'll get a school that'll say yes, and you're like, all right, awesome, and then you'll start going through that process with the officials and whatnot, and then they'll call you an hour and a half later and say no. So you're like, come on, man. So you have those as well. But yeah, it's a tough process. But it's kind of fun too.
You are watching the Cardinal Scoreboard Show from the Dugout Sports Grill. We are so glad you were joining us tonight. The Cardinals are playing the Frisco Memorial Warriors, as we just mentioned, for the first time ever. These two schools have never played one another. And their quarterback, Ethan Lawler, is an all-district punter, for whatever that gets you. Their sophomore running back, Brandon Tullis, has multiple Division I offers. Their wide receiver with the coolest name of the night,
He does.
Zion Steptoe,
He's got a good one. Nice.
6 foot, 180 pounds, runs a 4.4. He's only got 20 Division I offers so far.
I mean, like me and Joe have those. Yeah, it's no big deal.
I said 6 foot, 180, runs a 4.4.